Uh, First up, I would like to hand over to Ian Shawley. So over to you, Ian.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nicole, and good evening to everybody. To introduce myself, I am a long-term scuba diver, not a naturalist or an expert by any means, but almost from the first time I hit the water some 25 years ago, I've been fascinated by sea slugs, and I think finding them for me has become a little bit of an obsession. I know that's true of quite a few people, and I was pretty hopeless when I first started. I know that because in my time in Victoria, I've done many hundreds of dives, and many hundreds of dives at my favourite nudibranch site, which is Blairgowrie. And honestly, I did a lot of dives where I saw hardly any, which when I look back on things kind of blows my mind a little bit now, because back in 2017, I decided that I would start to record what I was seeing there. I am now, in that time, up to nearly 120 species of sea slug at just Blairgowrie, the one spot. So what I'm aiming to do tonight, I suppose, along with some other people, is give you a few hits and tips. How do you find nudibranch, particularly when some of them can be really small? So here we go. 5 tips from me, and I'm going to major on my 5th one, but to go through. Number 1, and I really do think this is the most important thing, and the difference between finding them and not finding them, and that is you need to slow down. And when I think back on my early dives, my focus was covering a lot of ground, seeing as much of the dive site as I could. Now I can quite happily do a 3.5-hour dive and not cover any more than 20 square meters. I think if you take anything away from me, slow down would be my thing, because you're looking for small stuff. You really do have to look. Second thing, I think it's really helpful to know what other people are finding, and there's some great resources to do that. We've already talked about the Nudibranch Victoria Facebook page. Every time I dive, as for instance, I'm trying to put what I'm seeing onto that Facebook page, because it helps to know what you're looking for. And I found that, I found stuff simply because I knew what I was looking for. The third thing for me, I tend to dive a lot during the day and not so much at night. And a lot of these things like to hide during the day. It doesn't mean they're not there. You just got to find them. And what I find is they're on the underside of things. So they're more likely to be on the underside of the leaf of kelp, the underside of the sponge, the underside of the piece of wood. What I would say is if you're going to get into turning things over, you need to do it very carefully. And you need to remember that they're hiding for a reason. So if you do turn things over to have a look, please make sure that you turn it back over when you're finished. My fourth tip is think about camouflage. A lot of these are trying not to be seen, which means that you're not necessarily looking for something that looks massively different from the surface that it's going to sit upon. And then I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So my major tip, I think if you can take the time to do some research, my biggest tip would be if you can understand what the nudibranch is likely to be eating, it's far easier to find the food source than it is the nudibranch. But if you find the food source, you've got a good chance of finding the nudibranch that feeds on that food source. There's a number of ways to find out what they're eating. I think the pictures that we see are a good clue. So look at what they're sitting on, and you will start to see certain types of nudibranch sitting on the same types of sponge, hydroid, whatever else that they're sitting on. Another good clue, if you see the eggs of the nudibranch, they're laying their eggs on the food source. So again, if you're seeing eggs on something, keep looking. Sooner or later, you're going to find nudibranch on it. There are some great then resources you can use. I love Bob Burns' book. It's against every nudibranch. It has a little section on where you're likely to find them, and then there are some good websites out there. I use the seasubforum.net, and also the Port Phillip Marine Life has a very good taxonomy kit that again tells you where it's known, what the food of each of the nudibranch are. I wanted then to wrap up just by giving you a few pointers. There is a pink thing going on. We've got quite a few pink nudibranch in our waters. If you find the pink sponges, then you're more than likely to find Nemea haloclona, usually in large quantities. And then every now and again, you'll find Nemea verconis. It even looks like the sponge that it feeds upon. Remember, nudibranchs get their colour from what they eat. So if you want to find pink nudibranch, look for pink sponges. If you want to find orange nudibranch, look for orange sponges. So there's 4 very, very easy to find orange nudibranch that I see almost every dive, just because if I see an orange sponge, I immediately go over and I look for these. Couple more from me. This small little nudibranch, Chromodoris alternata, again is at Blairgowrie, especially in very large quantities. A lot of people don't see it, but if you can find black sponge, then more often than not, you're going to find this nudibranch. And then last, I'll give you the one that everybody, I think, will recognise, Tamia verconis. Always you find it on the blue-green birozone. So, recapping then, most important, slow down, take your time, really look. If you're swimming fast, you're going to swim past it. Yeah. Keep an eye on what people are seeing. It's very easy then to go and look for specific examples. Underside of things rather than on top of things is really common. This is a real test of whether I can remember my 5. Think camouflage. So think about things not wanting to be seen and how they're likely to achieve that. And then finally, if you can find their food, you should be able to find the nudibranch. That's it from me.
Without any further ado, we will jump over to Nick Shaw. So take it away, Nick.